until the Armenian nation was almost eliminated from the face of the earth. Her ancestors came from a Middle Eastern plateau between Europe and Asia, Russia and Arabia. It was a stern and beautiful mountain land of great challenge. Legends claim that Noah's Ark came to rest on Mount Ararat in the Caucasus Mountains. 1,000 years before Christ, the Armenians settled around the base of this towering peak. Shepherds grazed their flocks in the upland valleys. On the plateau, they erected Armenian kingdoms and designed their coats of arms. Armenia had her birth on the battlefield, for she stood at the crossroads of the world. The empire builders, Assyria and Parthia, Rome and Persia, fought each other over the body of Armenia. The first period of Armenian history was the pagan era, which lasted over 1,000 years, from 700 BC to 301 AD. During these centuries, she became a buffer between East and West, learning from both and producing an enduring culture. In the 1st century BC, during the reign of King Dikran the Great, Armenia rose to her greatest power and territorial extent and became the dominant state of the Middle East. Dikran ruled over a mighty empire of over 25 million people. His power extended from the Caucasus to the edge of the Arabian Desert, from the Mediterranean to the Caspian Sea. History lives but dimly through the memory of man. Our search for the story of the millions of people who have lived on the Armenian tableland is rewarded in many libraries and monasteries throughout the ancient world. Here we find the records of a people who dared face overwhelming odds, to cling to their soil, to their creed and their language, and yet survive. In manuscripts, we read of the second era of Armenian history, the Christian, beginning in the 4th century. During this period, the Armenian language, which had been in continuous use for over 1,000 years, received an alphabet. Scholars were sent to all parts of the world. After 30 years of study, a written phonetic alphabet, including most basic sounds, was evolved. The new alphabet worked a miracle. The language blossomed, and the nation was united spiritually. These were the golden centuries. By the acceptance of Christianity in 301 AD, Armenia became the first Christian nation. An Armenian church, distinct from the Greek Orthodox and Roman Catholic, was established under the leadership of Gregory the Illuminator. The Persian king commanded Armenia to give up Christianity, but the Armenians refused to revert their faith back to fire-worshipping Zoroastrianism. On the field of Avarar, near the present Turco-Iranian border, the armies gathered their forces. Vartan, commander of all the Armenians, stood under the cross of Christ. While his soldiers watched, a pagan urn of fire was cast down at the foot of their leader. The Persians outnumbered the Armenians almost 6 to 1. Powerful elephants faced Vartan's army of foot soldiers. Before the sun had set, the black soil of Avarai had seen the world's first great battle for religious freedom and the preservation of the Christian faith. In losing the battle, the Armenians preserved their nation. The Persians won a territorial war, but failed in their effort to eradicate the Christian faith, which continued to be the dominant influence in Armenian life. For centuries, Vartan's tomb has stood on the barren Anatolian plain, a monument to the victory of faith over force. For the next 1,500 years, the church became the backbone of national life. Through literature and art, her scholars enriched a culture that unified the people. Armenian miniatures, painted in the monasteries of the Middle Ages, depict the story of Christ's life from birth through crucifixion to resurrection. Christ's 33 years on earth are compared symbolically with the 3,300-year history of the Armenian people. As Christ arose, so would arise the Armenian nation. This was the belief of the artist. The national revival continued in sculpture and architecture. During the early Middle Ages, thousands of churches were built in Armenia. As scholars and artists labored, the centuries slipped by. 600 years, twice the lifespan of most world empires. During this era, Armenia continued to fight in the cause of Christendom. In the 11th century, Ani, the shining capital of Armenia, was destroyed by the Seljuk Turks. A city of 1,001 churches was demolished by the conquerors. She stands today in immense solitude,